Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the third session in our Austin-focused National Drive Electric Week series. I am Aaron Choate, the coordinator of Austin EV, the Austin chapter of the Electric Auto Association. Today, we're talking with Joseph Barletta, the CEO of Smart Charge America. He has a presentation on what to avoid when planning your home charger install, and then we'll open the floor for a question and answer session. You can use the chat to share your questions during Joseph's talk, or feel free to unmute yourself during the Q&A and ask your question yourself. Okay, Joseph, want to get it started?
Sure. Thank you again, Aaron, for everything that you've been doing. Like I said, over the past 3 days, just the sheer volume of electric, drive National Electric Drive Week. It's been really interesting to see us do it in a virtual means. So for everyone, I definitely appreciate y'all's time in attending. I can't thank you all enough. Hopefully, I can give you some golden nuggets and some value bombs to take along the ride with you all. So just a brief introduction of myself. My name is Joseph Barletta. I'm the founder and CEO of Smart Charge America. We originally were established back in 2007. People still to this day ask me how I came up with the idea, and it was basically, I remember, if you guys remember, the iPhone came out originally back in June of 2007. And in August of 2007, I actually came up with the idea of the company because the backlight on the iPhone, it kept draining my battery. And no matter where I went, I remember I was having to plug in my phone at my office, in my car, at home, in the kitchen. Everywhere I went, I was constantly plugging in the phone because we weren't used to that. We were at, the old school Nokia phone, maybe Palm Pilot, maybe Blackberries. Those batteries tended not to have a really bright backlight and drain your battery as fast as the new iPhone. So based on that, I was a hot rod enthusiast, and I loved kind of geeking out with different means of technology and transportation, and started catching wind of electric vehicles, stuff. But the real true passion for hot rods came into play. And then when the phone thing came, I imagine that if electric vehicles were to become a thing, they're going to need, just like I'm dependent on my phone, they're going to need also a means of plugging in and constantly keep that power no matter where you go. I mean, look, if you can't charge, you can't drive, right? So if I'm dependent on this plug here to charge my phone because I'm completely dependent on my phone, if I have an electric car, I'm going to be completely dependent on that power source, which is that plug. And I'm really dependent on my car, my vehicle driving around. So it just made sense. Something clicked, light bulb happened. Of course, it takes you, months and years sometimes to build a business, brick by brick by brick by brick. And so back in, from 2007 to I would say 2009, we really didn't do much. It was just articles of incorporation, forming things out, website, content, all of that stuff. Then about 2009, we started doing a few installations for some conversion enthusiasts. Did 1 or 2 Tesla Roadster installs. 2010 hits, I'm doing Chevy Bolts. I'm doing Nissan Leafs. And then 2012 hits, I'm doing some Tesla Model S's, back and forth. And eventually it just kind of snowballed into this massive thing that we have now. And we're headquartered here in Austin, Texas. We currently have the Austin Energy contract. So if you guys see any of the charging stations out in the wild, we're the ones who are responsible for building those and making sure they're always up and running. So don't hurt me too bad if my uptime on those stations is around 98%. So we're doing pretty good to keep those stations up and going. But for the most part, that's basically where we're at now. I mean, we've done over 6,000 or plus charging station installations, and that's all between residential, commercial charging, applications. And so this is all that we do. We are solely focused on electric vehicle charging. We tend not to do any other electrical work, and the reason why is because if your car breaks down, or let's say if your charging system breaks down in your house, or at your workplace, like, people can't charge their vehicles, and if they can't charge, they can't drive. So it's very important that we have a huge focus on just electric car charging, and we're not distracted by everything else. And so with that, our response times on warranty calls, are within seconds. We're able to troubleshoot within minutes. And if that's not the case and we can't get it done, we're out to the house within hours. And that type of response you can only have with a company that's exclusively focused in it. So that's what we hope to bring to the markets. Now, we are headquartered in Austin, Texas. We do have 14 cities across the US that we've had opened up satellite offices, and we basically have the same similar service with regards to residential, commercial, as well as servicing related stuff for existing charging stations out in the wild. But for the most part, our main goal, I'm going to try to share a presentation with you all if I can. Let me see if I can pull this up there. Guys, let me know. I guess give me greens, thumbs high if everyone can see my presentation here. But basically, I wanted to briefly kind of introduce ourselves and kind of our mission to what we're bringing to the table. And you can see our mission basically is one thing. It's to accelerate the electrification of sustainable transportation. So anything and everything with regards to vehicles, buses, trains, planes, trucks, we don't care if it's sustainable and it involves electrification of transportation, we're all for it. And so, our purpose, I mean, if you really look at the intangibles, like the actual effects of climate change, our purpose is to really help offset the harmful effects of CO2 emissions and climate change with regards to this. And so this is something that I keep every single month. We do a company-wide, presentation, and we gather new industry news, new terms, what's going on, what are the results, so forth and so on. But I always put this slide in front of my personnel, my team, just to make sure that they're aware of that they are actually making a difference out there when they're installing these charging stations to help catalyst the EV movement. And of course, you can see that we're doing installations both home, work, around town, and even including interstate type systems. This is a visual resume of our customers, mostly commercial. But you can see, I mean, we've been in business since 2007, so we've done a lot of business with a lot of companies out there, a lot of OEMs. So we just hope that trend continues, and we're honestly truly blessed that we've had the chance to do business with those people. So our dream again is to coexist in a nature, with nature in a world of absolute circular ecosystem. I mean, everyone hears about the circular economy, right? And our dream is to kind of just implant ourselves inside that circular economy as we go about things. And of course, our vision to a fully sustainable, smart transportation economy. We know that, especially with like charging stations, there's dumb charging stations and there's smart charging stations, or there's networked or non-networked. People call them, different things. But our vision is as we engage more in a technological type of economy, these systems, they will be smart. I mean, you look at a Tesla. I mean, it's pretty much a computer on wheels. And so we're anticipating that the entire generation is going to move towards that smart transportation economy, and that's kind of one of our vision. And why do we do things the way we do? It's to change the world one EV charging station installation at a time. So you got to really break this down into the simplest terms. And this is stuff that I share with my team day in and day out. So as far as our transportation, like circular economy, the way we see it, I'll always stress with my team members that the fundamental understanding and service that we deliver to our customers by knowing everything about every EV ever made. You have to understand that we have a huge database. We know that the EV's onboard charging, the year, make, model, the battery type, the size. We have to know all these things about every EV that's I guess from 2008 on that's ever been made. We're also always knowing about upcoming EVs. We have to hurry up and do our research on those guys, so that way we're prepared. So if we know everything there is to know about the electric vehicle, we know everything there is to know about the different home charging systems and commercial charging stations out there, of which there are about 82 different residential units that you can select from right now on the open market. There are about 160 different commercial units you can actually select from out there. So you can imagine the amount of database that we have to keep up with constantly. Because when we're going out there, we have to service some of these older stations. We also have to service a lot of the newer stations. And then, of course, we're master electricians, so we know everything there is to know about the home system, the commercial system, so forth and so on. But knowing, just think about the fundamentals of knowing how all three of those, from the EV charging, and being a master electricians in our field, knowing all three of those under one roof. We hope that how all three of those are connected, that's basically essential in making the transition from fossil fuel to electric transportation easier. And if we can make that transition easy and comfortable for the user, then we're doing our part to accelerate the EV movement. And that truly is the core vision behind Smart Charge America. And I was talking with Aaron earlier, and I was saying, look, man, you got to understand, to get people to move from fossil fuel to electric is a complete, that is a monumental shift in attitude and mindset. And so they've already done that. They've already made that decision. They've already made that choice. And we want to be able to celebrate that with them. We want to be able to engage and be there with them for that. And if we can talk and execute on a really good, comfortable home charging station installation or that experience, then it makes things just that much better, overall. And then as far as our core values, here's a few of our core values here. It's just, kind of daily house cleaning stuff. And then our championship pedigree, this is stuff that we as a team, we look for: hungry, humble, and smart. So we're currently hiring right now. We have 5 job openings right now, but our current team, I cross-examine my guys every single week with this. I want to make sure my team stays hungry, we stay humble, and we're smart with our customers. Here's a list of the locations that we have all across the U.S. You can see we're headquartered in Austin, Texas, but overall, the red dots I'm waiting on licensing for those particular markets, but that's kind of gives you a visual of what it is that we have. We had a couple of videos and stuff that I show case my guys. And then as far as where we were, you can see history-wise, I actually used to build the charging stations, and believe it or not, I would have the charging stations. You can see in the middle picture, I would have them in the back of my trunk, and I would go to the customers' houses and, hey, which one do you want? Lift open the trunk, kind of like I guess I heard that Nike started that way. I didn't realize until afterwards, but this is the way that I would have to, have that experience for the customer. I had my little price tags on each one of the charging stations. And ultimately what I wanted to do was just give the customer back the power to choose. Here are the pros and cons on each one. Which one do you like best? Perfect. Let's go with that one. And so that is pretty much it for me, kind of in a nutshell. I mean, you can see as we progress over time, we've done shows, media, we moved offices, gotten bigger trucks, fleet, started making, better, presentations wise. And so what I'm going to do is exit from this particular presentation and then kind of engage with Aaron. If you want to show the avoid 3 most common mistakes, the PDF, if you can throw that up there.
Oh, sure. Let me grab that in a second. I closed it down, but I wanted to, we've had a couple of questions already that I think maybe make sense to address now. And one of them is, can you talk a little bit about the types of charging stations you're dealing with? So the question is really, do you handle just level 2, or are you also installing the DC fast charging
all of it?
stations?
We take care of all of it. DC fast charging, the cost of infrastructure and the cost of the actual unit itself, I mean, they can range between $25,000 and $45,000 a unit. That's per unit. So site construction, you're looking at maybe $250,000 easily when it comes to permits, utility plans, drawings, upgrading transformers, civil work, all the electric engineering, the actual electrical work that's done on those sites. It really is a massive undertaking. We actually completed I don't know if any of you guys have visited the Tesla supercharger out by the Arboretum, I guess off of Stone Lake. We completed that charging station installation site, probably one of the most difficult supercharging sites we've ever done, and one of the largest here in Texas. And so you can see the massive amount of work, and I mean, sheer time wise, I mean, it takes me 3 months to complete one of these sites easily. Whereas if we're dealing with just regular commercial level 2 charging systems, my guys are in and out within maybe 2 to 3 days. I mean, and that installation process is very simple. And so in addition to level 2 home charging stations, yes, we do commercial level 2, any and all applications, industrial, workplace, hospitality. I mean, you name it, we've installed it. And then of course, for the level 3 stuff, those systems just are a little more expensive, a little more in-depth involved in the actual installation. So I hope that maybe from the past, maybe 1 minute of me explaining, you guys actually, when you go to one of these DC fast charging sites, you have to understand you have to have appreciation of everything that went into that site. And sometimes that can be overlooked, with maybe a system being down or so forth and so on. But if you really look at that site, you're looking at some of them can cost up to $500,000 easily. with the amount of work and labor and not only hardware, but software that has to go inside these systems.
Okay. The other thing that that somebody was asking is, in an earlier presentation, we noticed that there's kind of been a trend towards home charging sticking to like level 1, or essentially the basic that the car came with, versus getting a dedicated level 2 charger installed. Could you give some feedback on that related to your experience from the charging installs that have been happening with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it normally it depends on the buyer and how involved they are within the electric vehicle market. Like if they've gone there and they don't know much about electric vehicles and then they just purchased the electric car. Believe it or not, there was a study, and I can't recall the institution. And I know I hate when people say, "Oh, there's a study" or "there was a stat," and they don't bring the reference. But essentially, what they've noticed is like almost 70 to 60% of people who actually buy electric vehicles, they don't really know that there's anything other than the trickle charger that comes with the car. And so that's they think that charger that comes with the car is how you charge the car, and there is nothing faster, right? And so, it just depends on the involvement on that. But for the most part, we're seeing you can probably survive with the regular trickle charger, depending on your driving habits, how much you drive per day. So we've seen like some of the people, especially with COVID, since COVID's hit, everyone's kind of, really reduced a lot of their traffic footprint with regards to how much they're driving. We're doing Zoom conference right now. I mean, let's admit it, right? So because of that, our driving habits have changed substantially over the past, 6 months. And so we've seen that there may be, maybe a slight slowdown, but for us, I mean, we've just accelerated with regards to home charging. I think people, they don't want to be handcuffed to the plug. They don't want to, I mean, when I'm talking to my clients, I always tell them, look, you didn't buy a washing machine, you bought a vehicle. So our objective is to get you charged as fast as possible so you can get off the plug and you can get to driving, right? But and again, it just depends on the driving habits. I mean, yes, you absolutely could produce maybe 3 to 4 miles of range per hour using the regular trickle charger that comes with the car. But for the most part, if you want to get up to the 25, 35 miles of range per hour on your charge, that's where the level 2 charging comes in for the home.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share your screen. We're getting a lot of good questions, but I want to make sure you get a chance to do this, and then we'll loop back to the questions.
Sure. So one
of
the
things. Can you all see that?
Yeah. So one of the things that we brought up a while ago, and if you go to our website, you can actually kind of it's sort of a value bomb that we wanted to give customers just visiting our website. You can sign up for it and bam, we'll send you this PDF. And the PDF basically goes over kind of the 3 most common mistakes that people don't really look for when they're installing a charging system. Again, remember, look, you can buy an electric car. You can go online. You can buy your charging station. You could go online, look up some random electrician to come out there and install your car. But they're not going to know about these different factors. And so the factor 1, not considering all factors when choosing your mounting location. When you're dealing with electric vehicles, every single electric vehicle has a different location of where that charging inlet is on the car. You see the BMW i3s, their passenger rear, Chevy Bolts, drivers, front, Nissan Leaf directly in front of the vehicle, Tesla's passenger rear. So all these different vehicles have different places where the charging inlet is. And so based on where you position that mounting point for your charging station, you really want to look at things where you're maximizing your parking utilization. So what that means is, let's say you have a garage, and let's say it's just a simple 2-car garage. Well, you also have, in your driveway, let's say 2 parking spots there. So you can front load in your driveway, in your garage, in both left and right parking spots. You can front load and park in your driveway, both front, left and right spots. You can also back into your driveway and back into your garage in those same. So if you look at parking space utilization, you actually have 8 different parking spaces to choose from. And so when you're dealing with mounting location, you want to position that charging station to a point where, look, life happens, man. Once we position this charging station on your wall, it's not moving. It's not going to go anywhere. And so you want to really maximize how many parking spaces you can actually park in and actually still be able to charge your vehicle, because life happens. Life, life gets in the way. The kids move out, things start to fill up in the garage. You got to park the car, in the driveway. Well, you want to position that charging station, hopefully in a manner like, for me, I position it in the front left part of my garage. So that way, if my car, if my garage fills up with stuff, I can easily, back into my driveway, sleeve the cable underneath my garage door and plug in, right? But I can also plug, pull into my garage and plug in that way. So you want to look at your parking space utilization when you're determining your mounting location of the actual car itself. And then you also want to make sure that you're taking into consideration things like cable management, right? You don't want to have to sit there and uncoil, 25 feet of cable every single day, day in and day out when you're plugging your car. You want to have something that's right there, very, very efficient for you. So that way, once you plug in, you don't even notice you're plugged in. You kind of have to maybe double check in the garage, maybe a few hours later, just to make sure, because it was so easy, you don't even remember doing it. And you also want to avoid things like tripping hazards, so forth and so on, with regards to where you're positioning that charging station. You could be surprised on how many people actually call us up for service calls that where the car was plugged in, the wife was in this position over here, the wife backed out, ripped the charging cable out of the thing because they wasn't paying attention, or they didn't think and take that into consideration with regards to where they're actually mounting the charging station when they're getting their home charging station installed. So do we have any questions with regards to the first one?
Let's see. I guess, yeah, this one kind of relates to that. So I'm sure you've answered this a million times, but why can't I just install a NEMA 1450 outlet with 50 to 60 amps and be done with it?
Okay, so you absolutely can. And this is one of the things, like, let's say for our Tesla customers, right? I'm trying to, a lot of our business comes from Tesla. I would say almost 60%, maybe 60% plus comes from Tesla. So I'm trying to verse it in more of a universal way. But yeah, Tesla's the big gorilla in the room, right? Or the big elephant, or I don't know what that expression was. But basically, when you're dealing with, vehicles like Tesla, the NEMA 1450 is a powerful outlet. It's a really good source. It's a heavy duty RV, basic RV outlet. It's 240 volt outlet. And yes, Teslas basically have that mobile connector. You buy the actual adapter, you put it on the actual thing, you stick it in there, you plug it in, and that's great. You guys have to understand that it is called a mobile connector for a reason. It is not called a permanent home charging, connector. It is called a mobile connector for a reason. It is meant to be mobile, to keep in the back of the car. Yes, you can absolutely use it for permanent charging means. However, you have to look at interconnecting points with regards to that power, that heat source. You're dealing with an outlet. So I have to install that circuit from your panel to an outlet. Then you have to buy an adapter. You have to plug into that outlet. That adapter has a connection to the actual transformer on the cable. Then that transformer, and that cable gets plugged into your car. So right off the bat, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3 points of failure that Murphy's Law is something will happen over time. Whether it's regarding the prongs getting loose from you plugging in and plugging out and pulling that off the receptacle, whether the electrician that came in didn't double check the lugs on the back end when he was tightening the circuit into the actual outlet itself, whether or not it's the connection that's inside the actual transformer to the adapter. These are all failure points, and over time they can and very much will be disrupted. And when you're dealing with the electric vehicle charging with a massive amount of power for a continuous amount of time, electric vehicle charging is nothing like anything you have or any other power load that you actually have power factor wise inside your house. Your AC jumps on and then it kind of hums and it goes off. Your oven jumps on and comes off. Everything in your house goes on and then jump. But electric vehicle charging, it's a full continuous load for the amount of time that's needed to actually charge the car. So you have to be very careful with regards to those NEMA outlets. I would say, maybe 60% of our charging installations for Teslas are the NEMA outlets. It is the cheaper option to go with, but we always try to give our customers the other option for their wall connector, because that is a permanent fixed mounting solution. That bad boy is hardwired from the panel to the station, from the station to the car. And that's what we want. We don't want any particular, failure points or interconnecting points that could cause heat, thermal damage. And of course, we have to go out there and try to repair. A number of our service calls, I'd say about 20 to 30% of our service calls are actually from electricians botching and not knowing this stuff, and we have to go out there and kind of fix their mistakes. So if we're not able to get you installed, I don't want to say that hopefully you become a service call customer, but there's a 20% chance you might be here in the area. So, but yeah, that hopefully that answers the question with the NEMA 1450 outlet. You absolutely can. The problem is that the connecting pieces and the adapters and all that stuff, they just lend themselves to failure points throughout the process. Now, we do have, NEMA 650s, you have, ChargePoint home units, we have the Electrify America units, the Enel JuiceBox Pro units. We'll mount those bad boys on the wall, we'll plug them right in, but we have to make sure that plug, that connection is secure. And honestly, we try to encourage the customer not to unplug and plug in, unplug and plug in as often as they may think that is necessary. So again, the NEMA 1450 is absolutely an amazing, I love it. I love going to RV parks and all that stuff with our Tesla and some of our fleet vehicles. But when it comes to permanent charging, a permanent means of charging using every single day, yes, you can use it, but be very careful and just kind of pay attention to those connecting points. Make sure it's an actual established and very tight connection, and just keep an eye on it, and you shouldn't have any problems. But time, time runs its course with everything. And so when you're dealing with that continuous load for a long period of time, it's just a little different power factor inside your house. So I hope that answers the question there. Yeah. But yes, you can ask.
Yeah. This is Brian Miller, and I asked that question, Joe. So I did actually get quoted $700 to install just a NEMA 1450 outlet by an electrician. I didn't do it, maybe because my my power source was further away from where the outlet would be. But that I just kind of wanted to get some context, and that's really helpful. I don't have a Tesla. I might end up with a ID4, sometime early next year. But so I'm just trying to, plan ahead, and that's a good answer. I hadn't considered that you actually have those kind of fault points, and I think you still have to do the same amount of work. Like you have to basically pull the wire from the box to wherever you're going to install the wall unit. Copper. But you have more. You have some more kind of fault tolerance built in there. So yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
When you're installing the NEMA 1450, you want to make sure that the electrician is running 50 amp wire to 50 amp, to a 50 amp plug using a 50 amp circuit. Where we've seen some electricians maybe cut corners is, let's say they give, a homeowner gives the specs for the charging station to the customer, and it's a 40 amp unit with a 32 amp continuous draw, and it requires a 40 amp circuit. But it's also a plug-in unit, so it's a NEMA 1450 plug. So the electrician runs a 40 amp circuit, 40 amp wire to a 50 amp circuit. I mean, a 50 amp plug, which you can absolutely do. That's okay. But because he ran 40 amp wire, 40 amp circuit to the 50 amp plug, you can only do a maximum of 40 amps, to that plug. That's going to produce a 32 amp continuous draw. If that electrician actually wired it for 50 amps and put a 50 amp circuit on there, that charging station can still be plugged in and disperse 32 amps continuous draw to the vehicle. But in case, let's say you get another vehicle 5 years down the road, and that vehicle, instead of 32 amps, which is 7.7 kilowatts, let's say that charging station or that electric car can now take 10 kilowatts, kind of like the old Teslas. Well, you can basically take out that charging station, put in another charging station that's actually geared for 50 amps with a 40 amp continuous draw, and deliver that 40 amps continuous to the vehicle, and not have to worry about rewiring everything, because that electrician, he cut corners. He only did exactly what the specs on the actual station itself went. So anytime you're dealing with a NEMA 1450 outlet, you always want to tell the electrician, hey, install 50, I want 50 amp circuit, I want 50 amp rated wire, going to this 50 amp outlet. Try not to get, downgraded on your wire. Even though it's spec, he can easily turn that 50 amp circuit to a 40 amp circuit inside your panel. That's fine.
Yeah.
Most important thing is the wire that's ran from panel to the charging station point. That's the most important thing. You can always go down, but you can't go up. You
Right.
can't run 40 amp wire and put a 50 amp circuit, on there. It's not going to work. It'll burn up. It'll trip. It'll cause you massive, failure. So.
I feel like you might have just
Thank you.
hit on the two other points on your handout. Do you want to touch anything else there, or do you want to?
I think I might have. Yeah, you're right. I might have. So not matching the charging rate of your car. Yeah. So this one's important. So what we've done is we've basically broke down like level 2 home charging into 4 different tiers. So tier 1 is kind of like your 3.3 to 3.6 kilowatt charger, and that's like your 15 to 16 amp kilowatt charger. So a lot of the plug-in hybrids, like the Chevy Volt or you guys know the plug-in hybrids, they would be more tiered to a tier 1 level 2 home charging system. Those are a little cheaper. They usually run between, I don't know, $399 to maybe $500 for those, because they have low amperage, low output. And that charging station, I mean, the onboard charger on the electric vehicle is maxed out at, let's say, 3.3 kilowatts. And so by having a 3.3, let's say a 3.3 or 3.6 kilowatt hour charging station matched up with a 3.3 onboard charger, that's where you want to be, right? You can also do like a tier 2 charging level 2 home charger where that's like a 7.2 or a 7.7. You can also put that in there, but the car is only going to take 3.3. It's not going to take 7.7. The good thing is if you take that car out and you get a new car, let's say a Chevy Bolt that takes 7.2 or 7.7, then great, you're matched up well with it. So the actual onboard charger for the vehicle itself limits the amount of power based on relative to how your actual charging systems go. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're matching the charging rate of your car, but you also want to take into account future expectations of maybe your second electric vehicle, or maybe where you're going to be at in the future. So when I see Chevy Bolt customers, or Ford C-Max Energy customers, or I always try to tell them, hey, look, you have a tier 1 system here that'll be perfect. It matches up with the onboard charger of your car. It's absolutely perfect. The problem is, let's say 4 years down the road, you decide to get another electric vehicle. Well, that vehicle can take 7.7 and you're stuck with a 3.6, kilowatt hour charger. So you're just going to basically increase the charging time that it's going to take to charge that vehicle. Whereas for another $100, let's say, or $150 more, we can bump you up to that tier 2 system, which is, between 7.2 and 7.7. Of course, you have your tier 3, which is your 10 kilowatt system, and your tier 4, which are your 60 to 100 kilowatt hour systems. And so we've basically broken those down into 4 tiers, and that helps us line with, well, what type of vehicle does the customer have? What's the onboard charger for it? Okay, perfect. Do they match tier 1, 2, 3, 4? Okay, perfect. Let's give them some charging options and tell them, what best fits. But for those plug-in hybrids, we always give them not only a tier 1, but also a tier 2 solution. And we just tell them the pros and cons and make them, have them make the choice on what they need based on their budget, timeline needs, and stuff like that. So that's where, not matching the charging rate of your car is extremely important. Every single electric vehicle has a different onboard charger. Every single electric car charging station has different, output rates. And so you want to make sure that input rate meets the output rate of the actual station itself. Any questions on that?
No, I'm collecting some good questions for after this. We're done with the handout, though.
Good. Okay, so and the number 3, the last but not but most important really is not using the correct materials, and that's with regards to wire size, type, fittings, etc. If you guys remember when I spoke about the power factor on these charging systems when they go inside your home, it is unlike anything else. It's not like your HVAC system or your stove or oven or anything like that. So you really want to make sure that you're using copper stranded, American wire gauge wire for a lot of this stuff, or you can use THHN, so forth and so on. But you want to make sure you're using copper wire for your installation, and you want to make sure that it's properly sized to match the breaker rating for your actual installation. So that's very important. So let's say for Tesla owners, Tesla's got their home charging system. It's called a wall connector. You guys might I actually have it here. That's the Gen 3 wall connector right there. So essentially that wall connector takes 60 amps. So I have to run a 60 amp circuit, 60 amp wire, connected to the charging station. It's powered for 60 amps. It will deliver 80% of that, or 48 amps, directly to the car. So let's say for a lot of the Model 3s and a lot of the Model Ys out right now, as well as the S's and X for Tesla, their onboard charger is maxed out at 48 amps. Some of the older chargers, I know some of you guys are a lot more savvy with Tesla. Some of the older guys, they have 40, 48, 72, 80 amp onboard chargers. I understand. I'm just trying to use a quick example for what we're seeing out in the marketplace now. When you're running that type of wire, there are two different types of wire. There's 6-3 and then there's 4-3. So 6-3 is rated for 55 amps. And so we've seen some electricians actually cheat the system and put a 60 amp circuit using that 55 amp wire. And that is not good. That's definitely going to cause some heating issues inside the actual unit. But 4-3 is actually rated for 75 amps. And so if you look at the difference price-wise between 6-3 and 4-3 wire, it's drastic. I mean, it goes from $1.50 a foot to $4 and something per foot of that wire. And so it does get, rather costly, but the electric code, they don't make anything specific to 60 amps wire. So they only have 55 and 75. So because you're getting a 60 amp circuit installed, we have to install that 75, which is good. You really kind of want that. In a lot of territories, like let's say Arizona, because it gets so hot in Phoenix, Arizona, we have to have an ambient temperature adjustment, which means that, let's say if I am running a 50 amp circuit and I'm okay with using that 6-3 wire, well, in Arizona, I can't. After 10 feet, I have to actually have an ambient temperature adjustment, and I have to jump up to 4-3 to install that 50 amp circuit, which is rated at 75 amps, because of just the sheer amount of heat that Phoenix is exposed to. The electrons can't pass through the wire. It just creates more heat tolerance within that circuit. And so we have to be savvy and conscientious of that when we're installing that line. So and that goes with everything, not just the wire, but the type of wire, your fittings. You want to make sure you're using EMT, which is almost commercial grade conduit. When you're running your electric lines, you want to make sure that the piercing points inside your panel are silicone or really good quality materials. You want to make sure that the installation is going to last a long time. What we're trying to do is we're trying to basically standardize the industry to an approach where, much like the solar industry is already kind of standardized, everything they use EMT conduit. We wanted to come in and just show the market, this is the standard for EV charging from here on out. Like for home, commercial, it doesn't matter. We're using EMT. We only use PVC, which is the plastic conduit. We only use that when we're going in the ground, because that conduit is actually rated for underground. But you see a lot of electricians, they'll cut corners and they'll use that same PVC for your entire installation. They'll go all the way across your garage or wherever they're going, across the house, back, underground, however they run, they'll use the entire thing with that PVC conduit. And although that is up to code, to stand the test of time and the quality and craftsmanship and the materials that you want to have installed for your home charging system, you want to make sure that that the electrician is using EMT grade conduit. And normally it's 3/4 or 1 inch conduit, depending on the type of run. So that's very important when you're dealing with distance equals cost, right? So the distance of your run is going to be relative to the cost. So if you're right next to the panel, then your cost is going to be a lot lower. If you're 120 feet from your panel all the way on the other side of your house, it's going to be a lot more because of that distance. You have to account for labor, all the materials. For every 6 feet, we have to, strap that wire in, or we have to have couplings and connectors and all this stuff that makes up this massive run, for your electric line. So you want to be conscientious of that and make sure that the reason why I'm saying here, you have to use the correct materials, because the longer the run, if you're using quality materials and the correct materials, the longer the run, the more cost that it kind of drives up on the installation side of things, because we are using those higher grade materials. So, any questions on using the correct materials, so forth and so on?
I didn't see any new ones there. Should I go ahead and stop this one and start asking some of the other questions?
Sure, fire away, guys, fire away. Wait, that's a bad pun in the electric term.
Yeah, no fires.
Yeah.
So I've got one related to going back to the DC fast charging stations. They were curious about why there's not one at the Miller HEB.
Okay, so the Mueller HEB project, we originally, that property basically has changed property management hands several times over the past few years. But right now what we've done is that property had 6 charging systems out, and we've actually removed 4 of them, but we've also installed 4 massive DC fast charging units in the back towards the gas station. On the back part of that parking lot at HEB Mueller. And so since then, the civil contractors that did a lot of that electrical work, they've actually botched those installations. They actually messed up the installation. You know, unfortunately, we bid on that installation project, and we did not get it because we were a few $1,000s over. But at the same time, the contractors that went in there and actually did that install, they did not do it according to specs that were inside the actual drawing. So they cut a lot of corners for that installation, which, you know, I'm not saying, you know, one way or another, but look, they got the job done. It was a massive, heavy load project. Maybe there's a reason why they had to, you know, do it one way as opposed to another. I don't know. We weren't the ones actually opening up the ground and doing that. But what we can say is that we've had to go back and fix those units 2, 3, 4 times. So hopefully, I did see there was a service call on Monday that we completed for it. Hopefully that bad boy is absolutely up and running now. And so, but there are 4 massive ChargePoint CPE 250 units in the back part of that parking lot that are ready to go. Green light. You guys can pull up over there. It's got both CHAdeMO and CCS Combo Connect. You're looking at a 62 kilowatt hour DC fast charger for those stations. So yes, please feel free, go charge up, visit HEB, go to Torchy's Tacos. Do not go into the gas station. We don't like gas stations, but yeah, sure, you can do whatever you want. But yes, those bad boys are up and running right now.
Great, thank you. Joel, did you want to ask your question about the solar?
Yeah, that'd be great. But first I wanted to ask a follow-up question or maybe a comment regarding the types of materials. I mean, when you talked about that, the thought came to mind as a percentage of overall cost, it makes sense to go quality. I mean, over time, it adds to the quality of the install and customer goodwill, I would think.
Yeah, and it's just time. The reason being is because it's unlike any other power factor in your house. And I can't continue to state that enough. You're dealing with a large amount of power for a continuous amount of time. And there is no jump up and spike down or jump up and come down. You know, it is full throttle. Because you're dealing that, if you don't have the right materials vested, if you don't have, you know, all that stuff, you could fall into some failure points along the way. So yeah. Again, these are things that we've learned over the years, because if you can't charge, you can't drive. And our customers, we never did like that. And honestly, I mean, we don't really get a lot of service calls or warranty calls for a lot of our work. I would say we're about 1% to 1.3%. I think I did the numbers last month on our warranty call ratio. And usually our warranty call is something that's done on the software side. Because, you know, these electric cars are always updating themselves on the software side of things. But sometimes the charging system doesn't update or something goes wrong. We have to go out there and reset the charging unit, reestablish, reconnect, reconfigure, and then everything works fine. So most of the time, it's not even our electrical connection. It's something to do with the technology inside either the station or the vehicle itself. So.
Yeah, thank you. And then the question about the solar carport, it actually was prompted by a question that Ryan Baggett asked about working with solar installers in commercial applications to build solar carports. carports with EV charging stations on the underside. And for me, a related question was partnering with residential solar panel installation companies, like, you know, SCA being the go-to partner for all the different companies out there. What comments can you make about you focused on, SCA is focused on the EV charging, but I can imagine you partner with other installation companies for that solar aspect of both commercial and residential.
Yeah, no, Joe, that's a great question. So we currently are doing a lot of Tesla Powerwall installations in our various cities across the U.S. I actually have a Tesla Powerwall 2.0 if anybody wants to buy one in back of my warehouse. Essentially, we focused on the charging aspect of it. We've been doing a lot of the Tesla Power Packs, a lot of the Powerwall installations all throughout. So we're really geared up and excited where the energy sector is going to take us on that. As far as the solar goes, my dream is to be able to do all three, absolutely 1000%. Are we there yet? We've only done 2 solar installations so far, you know, out of the 5,000, you know, EV charging, you know, systems that we've installed. But it just takes it takes me to be able to, you know, not rob Peter to pay Paul, but I have to open up a separate division to just handle solar alone to make sure that we have the complementary aspect of all solar power, you know, battery and charging systems, you know, they're catered for our customers. So right now what we do is we have a partnership with a local solar company in every territory that we're in. And so if our customers are interested in solar, we say, great, let us get you set up with the home charging system first. And then what we'll do is we'll make that handoff, we'll make that introduction. We'll kind of talk to them beforehand on some of the pros and cons of whether or not the size of their home and the layout of their home is going to be advantageous for what size system they're going to need to be able to cover, you know, 50%, 80%, 100% of their utility bill. What are they looking for? How much can they fit? These are all things that we work on the back end, but we have the team of electricians to actually do the install. We just don't have the infrastructure set up just yet to be able to provide estimates for the customer, that Salesforce back and forth, the ability to go buy panels, figure out inverters, all of that stuff. We just haven't been able, so we've outsourced that to a local company to be able to provide those services. So I would say, you know, honestly, about 20 to 30% of our customers that we have coming in now are interested in solar, and we actually take that approach with them very much.
I hope it goes both ways, that they recommend you.
Yeah, that is a part of our partnership agreement. Is that, you know, if they do have a charging system, that they'll allow us to come in there and feed off of their electrical work, and we'll install the charging system for the customer. And look, we'll charge them, you know, very, you know, discounted prices, and they can mark it up to the customer if they want. That's fine. It's totally on them. But yeah, that is a part of that mutual agreement with regards to, you know, kind of the benefits of that. But that is both on residential and commercial. Absolutely. We love the commercial side of things because you're just able to do a lot more with commercial. Commercial size solar systems are a lot larger. And so then therefore you're able to actually get a lot more of the charging aspect to be all full solar, all green. Whereas a home system may not be able to support both, you know, charging the car and full charge, you know, giving all the electric needs of the home. So you may have to, you know, take a little bit from the grid to give a little bit to the home or the actual vehicle. Whereas our commercial solar systems, we've seen that all of that power can go directly to the EV, and that's really exciting when you see that happening. But for the most part, I think that when you know, people are interested in solar, they're savvy enough, and their home is the roof is large enough, their system is large enough to be able to take care of not only the home, but also the charging system, because they're real passionate, especially if they have EVs already, about making sure that all of that power from that solar system goes into that EV. So they're going to do what they need. They're going to offset charging systems times to make sure that they're able to achieve that. So that's really exciting. It's a good question.
There was a question about what your feelings are related to essentially vehicle to grid, but using the vehicle to charge or feed power back into the house, independent of the solar install, actually. But have you seen any real effort there yet?
I mean, you got to be careful with vehicle to grid. I mean, the technology for not only the inverter, but for the charger and for the systems, the software systems is the big play, right? You have the only vehicles right now on the market that can do that are the Nissan Leafs, and they're currently doing that in China because, you know, the government is backing them up the manufacturers are, you know, they have that hardware inside the vehicle. The developers on charging systems have that hardware, and they both can mimic, you know, and maybe agree upon, you know, with government regulations on the same software. And so when those units connect, they're speaking the same language and they're able to make that energy transfer. Most of the time, everything that we've seen so far in vehicle to grid, you have the hardware here and you have the software, but you have to actually, you know, do a Raspberry Pi, and you have to, you know, invert a giant DC fast charger to be able to plug into your system, be able to, you know, speak the language and do that. So it can be done, absolutely, but the cost of the engineering of the language, of the software, and everything else that's involved, it may not be beneficial to get at this point what you're trying to get from the vehicle to grid connection. You know, Pecan Street project, you know, they have one of their pilot programs that they're doing, and you can see the massive system they have over there, the complications and software and hardware. They're doing it, but the amount of research and hours and all that stuff that it takes, I mean, it's massive. So just like, you know, I mean, we have right now the current technology for like, I forget what they call it, like synthetic photosynthesis, where we can actually, you know, pull carbon out of the atmosphere and create oxygen, just like, you know, photosynthesis does with trees. But the cost of that technology is so much, and it actually, we have to create more carbon than, you know, that actual product will be able to offset in its lifetime. So it's not worth it. But I think right now, just for vehicle to grid, I think we're about 10 to 15 years away from really seeing grit and groundbreaking stuff happening with the vehicle to grid technology. I mean, look, we're still in the 1%, right, of new car sales is EV. We have to work on transitioning everyone to that electric vehicle mindset, which is going to be decades in order for us to do that. Once we get there, then you're going to start seeing people focus, like companies that just focus on electric vehicle to grid technology, go in and try to convince these OEMs, hey, you got to put this software, this hardware inside these vehicles as you're producing them on the line. Once those vehicles start flooding the market and hitting the market, then you have charging systems and you know, manufacturers that also agree upon that same language and hardware, and then you're able to make that connection. And the utility companies you have to get involved with at the same level as, you know, home builders and electric panel systems, so forth and so on. You have to get all those parties in gear. And right now we're just fighting to try to take our share, you know, electric vehicle wise of the market itself. So I love vehicle to grid. I love the potential. I mean, think about it, virtual power plant, you can use this. I mean, the potential is exciting where the future's going with it. But unfortunately, there's just that software and hardware component language wise with that power transfer that's making it extremely difficult too. And then of course you're going to have regulatories from the utility companies, you know, trying to push that and suffocate that down as much as they can and as long as they can for that. So, but yeah, I do see maybe, you know, 10 to 15 years that seeing that become a little more prevalent. So hopefully that answers the question.
I think so. There's one other question related to the things that ChargePoint offers, or that ChargePoint has charging stations with Wi-Fi connectivity. Are there other charging station manufacturers that do it as well, or better than ChargePoint?
I wouldn't say better. You know, ChargePoint's, you know, a leader in the industry. They're about 70% of the market share when it comes to electric car charging because they're fully integrated. They're one of the only companies that is basically birthed on doing electric vehicle charging from the ground up. And this is all that they do, similar to us, right? I mean, we had to learn how to become an electrical contractor. We only focused on electric vehicle charging installations first, and it was only this thing started snowballing. We actually had to figure out how to become an electrical contractor. It's great. We didn't just start doing this on the side. You have companies out there like GE or Schneider, or Siemens, they started doing this stuff on the side, and they hit a massive block, and their system just isn't up to par or as good as the ChargePoint unit. ChargePoint, you know, they do have their online capabilities with their Wi-Fi enabled unit for their home system. The problem is the connection ratios. I mean, right now they're at like 12% to 20% connection ratio. So the people that actually get it installed, hardly any of them actually connect the darn thing to the internet, so that way they can actually see their charging because the vehicle itself tends to show them all their charging that they need. But we're trying to work with our customers that we do go and install those ChargePoint home units and just kind of encourage them, hey, go ahead and make that connection. You're going to really like to see where your electric usage is at the home and also, you know, on the commercial level when you're out there in the wild. So but it's just that connection. Yes, they do offer it. The connection rate is very low. Other companies like Enel, Juicebox, and even the Electrify America, some of the Clipper Creek has used JuiceNet software inside their units to be able to have that, to offer their customers the same thing. But overall, Juicebox is really good. They've done a lot over the years, especially from Enel X taking them over. But I think those are the two heavy hitters when it comes to the marketplace, is ChargePoint Flex, or the ChargePoint Home unit, and then of course Enel. Electrify America, believe it or not, they have a home charging system you can buy online, fairly cheap. They say that they're Wi-Fi enabled, but the actual hardware inside that unit, we've broken it open, we've seen it. They don't have plans on engaging the Wi-Fi connection inside the unit. So it's basically a dummy unit until they, I don't know, push a button somewhere down the future and say, hey, look, we're Wi-Fi enabled now. So yeah, that's right now there's only 2 of those units, the Juicebox Pros, as well as the ChargePoint Home Flex units.
Great. The another question came up earlier related to whether for residential level 2 installs, could you share a bit about what the mix is between existing residences versus new construction for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say existing is about 95%. New construction is about 5%. One of the things that I've been really trying to hammer down is not only our relationships with solar companies out there, but also home builders. If we can offer a package for people that are building their home for their electric car charging system, we can come in with a home builder, and let's say we can do it for, $1,200. The home builder, puts a unique amenity election on the buyer's, thing for $1,500. Well, then the home builder just made $1,250, or however much they want to mark it up, that's fine. But we have a fixed price based on the circuit, the run, the charging system. Does the customer want a Tesla charger? Does the customer want a regular, universal charger? And so they can elect. We have all fixed pricing based on lengths and all that stuff, based on the make and model, or the model of the home. We can come in and actually have packages ready for these home builders. It's one of the things that we've been working on within our verticals to be able to offer home builders, but we've been so busy with our load coming in right now. And that's why we're hiring, right? We're hiring aggressively for more sales, admin staff, bookkeeping, more sales, residential and commercial. So yeah, and it's definitely exciting to get into that. I just need more personnel. I need more bodies. So
that's great. That's a good place to be in, I think. I think we're coming to the end of our session, so I think that's also a good point to say, if they want to get in touch with you, either to apply for a job or to do an install, how would you like them to find you?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to apply for an install, it's very simple. We, over the years, we've basically tried to utilize technology to push down the cost of the home charging system installation as much as possible. You can visit our website at smartchargeamerica.com, and you'll see on the front page, we try to make it as easy as 1, 2, 3. It's request, select, and charge. You request us to start working on your stuff. You select whatever charger we give you, because once we get your information, we basically ask our customers to upload a few photos of their garage, fill out a quick form, takes you about 2 minutes, and you hit submit. You're in our system. We take Google satellite imagery of the house, 360 degrees, with the photos that you've provided on the ground and the information. I have my master electricians, my estimating team, our engineers. We draw an exact scope of work for your installation. And then we give you a couple different options on your charging systems to choose from. You select which one you want to go with. We put you on the calendar. We get out there, we do the install, and then you got us for the next 3 to 4 years under warranty, depending on what selection you actually made. And that's pretty much it. That's how we cater to our home charging systems and customers. And so, yeah, smartchargeamerica.com. That's the easiest way to get in touch with us. info@smartchargeamerica is also a really good email if you're interested, job candidates wise. We have postings right now on ZipRecruiter, Indeed, various other platforms. And so, yeah, but for the most part, info@smartchargeamerica.com, or just visit our website. All of our contact information is on our website, so forth and so on, to get signed up for our services. But yeah, I mean, I hope that this presentation was as beneficial for you guys as it was for me meeting all of you all. So I definitely appreciate the time and the consideration for having me on board. I can't thank you guys enough. Wonderful.
Thanks, Joseph. We really appreciate your spending the time with us. I'm going to say that, or I wanted to take an opportunity to mention to the rest of the people who are attending that there are one other session within the National Drive Electric Week for the Austin Focused events. And so if you go to austinev.org, you can find that listed there. And then that's also an opportunity, if you want to join the national organization, Electric Auto, and support the chapter if you'd like.